Time for the week 2 recap. I'm doing this one not in the middle of the night, so hopefully less rambling today. Also, going to try to cut down on the time. The first few, so much to talk about. Now we're more into the swing of the season, if you will. So let's try to cut down on the length of this. Let's try to make this 45 minutes. I'm probably not going to be able to stay by that, but I'm going to try. Going to have a guest too later on in this. Is this a video? Do we consider this a video? I think we do. Whatever you want to call it, recording, video, I don't care. So every week, I want to start out with a headline. Last week, it was the really poor performance of the quarterbacks and tight ends. And you know what? In week 2, they kind of bounced back. Most of them did. Joe Burrow didn't, and we'll get into that later. But it was nice to see most of the quarterbacks, tight ends bounce back. But the week 2 headline, I think it's pretty obvious. And it is the fact that the running back position has just been utterly obliterated by injury. Some horrendous injuries early on in this season. Nick Chubb last night, that was gruesome. Great player, has long been one of my favorite guys to watch in the NFL. Seems like a pretty solid person too. So you really hate to see something like that happen to a guy like Nick Chubb. And you wonder at his age, 27, 28 years old, does he come back from this? I don't know. Multiple torn ligaments in the knee. It could be the end for him. And at the very least, it could be the end of him, being the Nick Chubb that we know and love watching so much. So that was terrible last night. And beyond any fantasy ramifications, let's just remember that that's a man's livelihood. And it's a shame. It's just a shame. As for the fantasy ramifications, just a devastating blow to Horvath's team that's been pretty good through 2 weeks, and he's done it without Cooper Kupp, and now he's lost Nick Chubb for the year. So very hard to envision Horvath's season going well at this point, but you got to try to rebound. You have to try to figure something out. Last year, Andrew lost both of his starting running backs. He made it all the way to the title game. It is possible, but you need to find something on waivers or hit on a late round draft pick. Something needs to happen for Horvath to make up the loss of Nick Chubb. And that's not the only running back injury. Saquon Barkley, ankle sprain. I just saw earlier today, Brian Daboll is saying that maybe Saquon could play on Thursday. I think that that's probably a little crazy, very unlikely. But the good news is that even if he does sit in 48 hours, maybe he's back the following week. So if you only lose Saquon for 1 or at the most 2 games, you feel pretty good about that if your Lohan disaster was averted of a potential broken ankle or a severe high ankle sprain that would have cost him over a month. Austin Eckler, he's dealing with a situation of his own. Also, another ankle injury. And Brandon Staley said yesterday that there's no timetable for his return. So we do not know when Austin Eckler might be back. So these are 3 running backs who were taken in the first round, in the top 11 overall, who are all dealing with injuries. And that's not to mention some of the other guys that we've seen go down as well. Aaron Jones has missed a game already. David Montgomery got banged up, J.K. Dobbins. And I think there are some other names as well that I might be forgetting. Jamal Williams last night left the game in the second quarter. So, yeah, I mean, running back injuries are really adding up. And depth is being tested early on this season. And you know that those injuries are just going to keep piling on. That's the way it just always ends up being. So it's a war of attrition. The deepest teams typically end up being the ones that are there at the end, and you just want to keep trying to stockpile depth any way you can. Well, that's a negative way to start, but it's the reality. Let's get into the matchup breakdown now, and we will start with one of the most lopsided matchups that I've ever seen. Matt Mecca nearly won his matchup by 100 points over Lerrar. 164.34 to 65.85. That is an ass kicking of epic proportions. Seriously, I've never really seen anything like this. You could take basically almost any three players on Mecca's team, and it would have been enough to beat Lerrar. And the wild part about this, too, is that Matt's quarterback, Anthony Richardson, goes down in the first half with a concussion. So this could have been way, way worse. Matt, obviously the highest scoring team of the week by over 20 points, just absolutely dominated. And it was a big bounce back after last week. He was in the 90s for points scored. Let's start with Mike Evans, right? Matchup MVP, 29.1 points. Mike Evans has looked really good. A touchdown in each of the first 2 weeks. He's averaging 24 points per game. It's looking good. And the concern here was that Baker Mayfield, not always been fantasy friendly. I'm fully on board with that. I think he's a terrible quarterback for fantasy purposes, but he's been good so far. Is it because they've played two poor defenses? Maybe. I would lean that way. That, they've played Chicago, Minnesota, two teams that are not good defensively, and that's helped. Well, we're going to get to see now. They play Philadelphia, New Orleans the next 2 weeks. If they are still putting out good offensive production, then you got to give Baker and that offense the props they deserve. If they get shut down, then it kind of shows you that it was more of a fluke. So that'll be something to watch for in the coming weeks. But as for Mecca, basically everyone on his team scored. Tyler Lockett, huge bounce back. Him and Geno Smith. That was the disaster of a week ago. I think they combined for under 15 points. This week they went for over 50 between the two of them. Incredible turnaround and very encouraging sign. Tyler Lockett scored twice. Devontae Adams, a good game. And that happened despite missing some time with his own head injury. So there's another guy. If Mecca had a full game of him, who knows what his score would have ended up being. Derrick Henry gets into the end zone. That's good. And this all happened without Aaron Jones, who was injured. So it's not like this does not represent the ceiling of Mecca's team. You look at this and say, there were more points to be had here with all the injuries this team had to deal with. Anthony Richardson, 18.3 points in a little over a quarter of action. Incredible. That's what a run-first quarterback does for you in fantasy. 2 rushing touchdowns for the rookie. He's concussed now. He's probably going to miss this week, but if he can learn how to protect himself, he's going to be very good for fantasy this season and probably a steal for Mecca. A couple years back, what was it, maybe 2018? Mecca won the league because he took a late round flyer on Lamar Jackson. 13th, 14th round pick. He won the league because of what Jackson did that year. Could Richardson produce similar rushing output? I think so. And Mecca got him at a similar point of the draft. So he might have found himself a cheat code. Really just a great week for this team. Mark Andrews, he comes back. Scores. So that's good stuff. Really nothing to say negatively about this performance. Khalil Herbert wasn't very good, whatever. That's your running back 3. You had to plug him in because Aaron Jones was out. There's nothing I can really say about Mecca's team. Great week. You got to feel very happy about where your team is headed moving on this season, too. As for Lerrar, it's the complete opposite. This team, it was predictable. that it was going to be terrible in the beginning of the season. Didn't think it would be this bad. But it has been. And Larar's season, out of all the teams in the league, if there's one team who I think is already done, it's him. I really do. I don't think he can come back from this. Prove me wrong. I'd love to see it. Prove me wrong. But I think Larar's done. Ja'Marr Chase, this is brutal. There's nothing you could say about this. He's been awful because Joe Burrow is not healthy. 10 catches for 70 yards through 2 weeks. No one could have seen that coming. And Ja'Marr Chase is the wide receiver 54 right now. And that, along with some of Larar's other decisions, have him in this horrible, horrible situation. Deshaun Watson is awful. I'd be very concerned about his ability to get back to what he was after Monday night. And with Chubb out now, Chubb being out, that really hurts that offense greatly. It's gonna need to come. Last week I talked about he had that 45 yards rushing and a rushing score. That's the only saving grace he has. He needs to do that to be good for fantasy because the passing output, it's just not going to be there. Joe Mixon's been rough because the Bengals offense has struggled. Najee Harris, this is 5.3 points each of the first 2 weeks. He currently has 3 catches for 2 yards on the season. I don't know. I don't know what to say. He hasn't looked good in years. Offense not very good. Offensive line not very good. He needs more pass catching, or he's going to struggle. Pass catching is what made him very good for fantasy as a rookie. The last 2 years, it has not been there, or maybe the last 3 years at this point. I don't even remember. But Najee Harris, it's been bad. Not much else to say here. Kyle Pitts, another rough showing. Jerry Jeudy, first game back, didn't do it. Nothing went well. Nothing went right for Larar here. Kamara still suspended. Yeah, even the bench was rough. Jonathan Taylor, you're waiting on him. I don't know what to say. I can't take anything positive away other than you're hoping the Bengals will be better. But that's going to require a healthy Joe Burrow, and we don't know if that's going to be the case at any point, anytime soon. So, yeah, Larar's got some stuff to figure out because this could you could dig yourself into a hole that you can't climb out of if you're not careful. He needs a win this week. You can't start 0-6. We'll move on. Got a really good matchup, a bunch of really good matchups outside of that one, to be honest. And we're looking at 2 matchups decided by less than 5, another one decided by less than 10. And let's go to that one. Lohan Peter, this was solid. 135.17 to 127.95. Lohan the victor. Lohan is 4-0. Jalen Hurts was great for fantasy purposes. Not so much real life, but we don't care about real life. We're playing fantasy. 27.15 for Hurts, 2 rushing scores. It was very similar to what Anthony Richardson did. That's huge. You're getting 15 points from running alone with 35 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. That makes your week. He also had a bomb touchdown pass to Devontae Smith. Saquon Barkley, he was huge down the stretch, 27.2 for him. Matchup MVP will go to Mr. Barkley. Actually, no, it won't. I changed my mind midstream. TJ Hawkinson will get it. 25.6. He scored twice, once in garbage time, but it all counts the same. But Barkley was really good. Unfortunately, he suffered that ankle injury. We'll see how long he's out. Maybe only a week. It'd be really nice. Yeah, TJ Hawkinson, big bounce back, and 17 targets. Wow, that was very strange. 17 targets through 2 weeks is great. You love to see that. 15 catches for 101 yards makes me want to uh, vomit, but we play in a PPR league, so that's very good. Yeah, it's like 6 yards a catch, but we reward that kind of thing in PPR. 17 targets, that's great. You love to see it. Rest of the team, good stuff. James Conner, he gets pretty much all the work in Arizona. 23 carries. Only one target was odd, but what can you do? Calvin Ridley, very disappointing. It's funny, since that massive first half against the Colts in week 1, had 7 catches. Only 3 catches over the next 6 quarters that he's played. So I don't know what does that mean anything? Maybe not. Maybe I don't know. But something to watch for. He did have 8 targets in this game. I didn't watch any of that, so I don't know what happened. Might have been a bunch of uncatchable stuff, might have been drops. Couldn't tell you. I can't watch everything. But yeah, we'll see what Ridley does this week. I'm going to be very interested to follow him. Dalvin Cook, nightmare. 0.2 fantasy points. Cut him. He's a bum. He's washed. There's a reason he wasn't signed until August. He's done. And the Jets line sucks. The Jets offense sucks. And he sucks. So it's a bad situation. I would never want to start him again if I was Lohan. Maybe that was a little harsh, but what do I care? Yeah, I don't know. Zay Flowers, I really like what he's done through 2 weeks. He's commanding targets, 15 of them. He's producing. It's all good. He should be a solid flex. Lohan kind of needs him to be a wide receiver too, but maybe he can grow into that by season's end. It's very possible. Just a solid week for this team, and nice to see this type of production with Ridley not giving you all that much. Encouraging. On the other side, Peter, and I want to first start out by saying these types of matchups and what happened to Peter here, it's why the second matchup is a good thing. 127.95, that is a good score. What was that, the 4th highest scoring team of the week? Yes. Okay. It's good that he was able to come away with a win for that. Would have been unfortunate if he didn't. So, and Peter himself actually texted me early in the afternoon on Sunday, and he said he was loving the fact that the second matchup gives him, and really basically everybody, something to play for throughout the week. Even if you see early on that your opponent is going off, like, you're facing, let's say, Mecca this week. I think his whole team played at 1 p.m. So you knew by basically 2:30, 3 o'clock, if you were facing Mecca, that you lost. Your week is over. You have nothing to care about if we only had one matchup. But when you have the 2 matchup system, basically, I mean, through 2 weeks, almost everybody is having at least something at stake going into Monday night. Yesterday, there were 8, 9 teams with something on the line going into the Monday night game because of the 2 matchup system. So, I like it. I think it's been good through 2 weeks. And some people disagree. Some people agree. Can't please everybody. But I feel good in my mind that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and that is reward the better teams. As for Peter, Tony Pollard was good. The receptions were there. Wanted to see that last week. Got it this week. 7 catches, 37 yards. Again, oh my God, I hate some of these lines, but 7 receptions is a great thing. T. Higgins, what a bounce back. 0 in week 1, 28.9 in week 2. That doesn't get more drastic on each end of the spectrum than that. What a week for T. Higgins. Travis Kelce, he came back with a touchdown, only 4 for 26. He's just, getting his feet back under him. He'll be much better moving forward. Terry McLaurin had a bomb touchdown. I still don't trust him or the Washington offense, but for 1 week, he was very good. Michael Pittman, another PPR game, 8 for 56. Those are the positives. The negatives, multiple, plural, for this team. There were 2. Justin Fields, this is concerning. He's been very bad. That's all I have to say. He's been bad. He's the quarterback 21. He hasn't looked good in real life, and he's been bad in fantasy too. Basically 16.5 points each of the first 2 showings of this 2023 campaign. He can't really throw right now. And the rushing isn't there either. 4 rushing attempts for 3 yards? I don't even know how that's possible with a guy like him. You hope he turns it around. He started out slow last year, too, before really getting going. Maybe we see the same thing, but I'd be concerned. Peter invested a high draft pick in him, 42nd overall. What else do we have? Oh, yeah, Breece Hall. 4 rushing attempts for 9 yards, 0.9 fantasy points. Yeah, it's not what you want, obviously. And the Jets' offense is, it's not good. And they had a brutal matchup against Dallas. I'll be a little bit less of a dick. Like that's a terrible matchup. Okay. But still, you want to see better than that. God. Breece Hall was so good in week 1. I'm not jumping off a bridge over what happened here, but I guess it shows you the floor. It shows you the floor of being in a bad situation. And that's concerning for a guy that you're going to probably have to count on throughout this season. Yeah, one thing I wanted to look at here quickly. Oh, I forgot to mention something about Mecca. This would have been egregious if I didn't get back to this. Puka Nacua. Okay. Wide receiver 2 on the season right now. 35 targets through his first 2 career games. 20 in week 2. This is unreal. Puka Nacua. I don't know if Cooper Kupp returning, if he returns, is going to destroy his value or not. I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'd wager to guess it's not going to. He's not going to see 20 targets, but maybe more like 10 to 15. He is an early candidate to be like fantasy MVP with what he's doing. As a waiver wire pickup, this is unreal. No one's ever done this type of stuff through their first 2 games. Mecca got a good one. I wish I got him. I tried to get him. I was a spot behind Mecca in waiver order. And I got to say, Lerrar and Colin, or maybe it was just Colin, I don't remember. Whoever was ahead of Mecca in waiver priority and didn't submit a claim for this guy, shame on you. What a mistake. Like potentially a league-losing mistake. But yeah, Nakua's been great, and Mecca's got to be thrilled to have him on his team. Let's move over to another matchup, another division, and Dylan, who came in last year, he's looking like he's not going to come in last this year. In fact, he might come in first this year. His team's been very good through 2 weeks, 140.61 to 118.48. He defeats Sam. Dylan's team, a couple of weeks, 140-ish points both times. That's pretty good. You got to be thrilled with that. Pat Mahomes, solid game, nothing incredible, but solid, 24.25. Everyone was solid. Really. Brandon Ayuk wasn't great, but he got banged up. This is going to happen in that San Francisco offense. They're going to take turns. One week it's going to be him. One week it's going to be Debo. One week it's going to be Kittle. One week it's going to be, enter name here, Juwan Jennings. Is he still there? I don't know. They're going to take turns. It's going to be a by committee receiving core. They have too much talent there for those guys to be great every single week. But you still got to be happy with Ayuk through 2 weeks, wide receiver 8 on the year. The running backs here. Austin Eckler was out. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. Take your time. Rest up. Ken Walker III, Brian Robinson Jr. 4 combined touchdowns between those two. Brian Robinson looks very good. And this was a guy I wanted. I hated that I didn't get him. I thought he would make it to my next pick, but he didn't. And I'm regretting it. Yeah, Brian Robinson, he looks good. And he is good. I think he's a good running back. And the nice thing for him is that he's fully overtaken that guy, what's his name? Antonio Gibson. Yeah, that he very forgettable person. Just not good. But hopefully for Robinson, his role continues to grow. The one thing for him is that receiving is not his specialty. And so you're going to hope that maybe that grows. That's if he's to be an elite fantasy option, the receiving needs to be there. And we'll see if that is something that will take off as the season goes on. Devontae Smith, very, very good through 2 weeks. He's gotten the touchdowns over A.J. Brown. I'm sure it'll swing back at some point. Those guys, it's kind of like Chase Higgins, Metcalf Lockett. They're going to take turns. They're both going to end up being good. And right now it's Smith who's making the big plays, getting into the end zone, wide receiver 7 so far. Good bounce back for DJ Moore in spite of Fields' struggles. 16.4 from him. So, very positive outlook for Dylan. The one kind of concern I have right now is a lack of depth. Beyond his starting lineup, there's not a ton to be excited about. Rosters 3 defenses. You're going to play matchups with that, I guess. But, yeah, you're rostering 3 defenses, 3 tight ends. That kind of limits your ability to have depth at the big positions. But nonetheless, like I said, through 2 weeks, you got to be thrilled if you're Dylan. For Sam, this was kind of frustrating because early on, it looked like it was going to be a big week, right? Justin Jefferson had another big game. Josh Allen rebounded with a big performance. Rachaad White, who I really dragged last week, he was good. What did he have here? 5 catches. He had a touchdown. That's good stuff. But it just really kind of fell apart after the 1 o'clock slate. Javonte Williams, not much production. George Kittle was brutal. 3 catches for 30 yards. He's the tight end 26 right now. That's concerning. Kittle's going to have his games. He always does. But this is kind of the Kittle experience. He also has these down weeks. Jamal Williams got injured Monday night. Jalen Waddle got banged up at the very end Sunday night, and he has been a little disappointing so far. He hasn't had any, he hasn't gotten into the end zone. Only 11 targets through 2 weeks. That's not the best. I don't know. Yeah, if you're Sam, this could have been so much better, but didn't quite work out. He still was able to get a second matchup win out of it. He was ahead of me by 0.11, also known as 2 yards. So that's huge. That's actually massive that he got that. Because I'd be 4-0, he'd be 0-4. He'd be in trouble. Instead, you come away with 1 win. You feel much better moving into next week. If you could find a way to go 2-0, all of a sudden you're back to 500. The bench was great for Sam. George Pickens had a big game. George Pickens, great talent. Deontay Johnson is out right now. This is his chance to take advantage. Do I think he's going to be consistent? Not at all. But he's a guy you could plug in and know that he's capable of this. Always capable of a boom game. Gabe Davis is the same thing. Pickens and Gabe Davis are basically the same guy. Boom or bust flex option. Both were great this week. The big storyline on Sam's bench is Kyren Williams. This is a huge development. He is the lone man in Los Angeles. Cam Akers is dead to them for the second time in 2 years. Now, I want to talk about this a bit because I really liked Akers coming into the season, and it was because I thought he's going to get basically all the snaps, all the touches, because that's the way McVay likes to be. He picks a guy, and whoever it's been over the years, he rides them into the ground, and they're usually good for fantasy. At the back end of last year, that was Cam Akers. Early on last year was Darrell Henderson. Now it's Kyren Williams. Now, has Kyren Williams been good? Like from a real life efficiency standpoint? God, no, he has not. He's got 29 carries for 104 yards. That sucks, but it doesn't matter. Who cares that he hasn't been good? He's getting all the volume, and that is key in fantasy football. Volume is king. You'll hear analysts of this game say it all the time. Right now, he had 20 touches last week, 10 targets. That's insane. 10 targets. He's got 4 combined touchdowns through 2 weeks. It's been fantastic. Could be the steal of the draft. Seriously. Could absolutely be the steal of the draft. It wouldn't surprise me. Sam got him 144th overall. He's the running back 2 right now. This is a big deal. Is it going to sustain? I don't know. Maybe they go out and try to get another running back. I don't know. Maybe they're happy with him. It's impossible to know with Sean McVay. But this is very encouraging for Sam moving forward, and getting that one win with the way that I feel about his team. I think it's a good team. Not starting 0-4 seriously was a big deal. Now we'll move over to my matchup. Going to try to start running through this a little bit faster. We've got 3 matchups to go. We do have a guest to come on still. I'm going to blow through this. 118.37 to 115.44. I defeated Andrew. It wasn't looking good for me for a long time. It was looking bad, in fact. And then things kind of worked out. I'm pretty happy to win this one. Am I upset to lose the second matchup by 2 yards? Yeah, a little bit. You would have loved to have had that start 4-0, but I'm glad that I got a win out of it when it looked like I wasn't going to most of the day. And, you had Andrew on the other end. He was crying to me all day about, oh, I'm going to lose. You're going to win. I have so many, guys out and all this stuff. It's like, you know what? You were projected to win most of the day. And frankly, it was sickening to read these text messages from Andrew as my team is struggling, as I'm losing guys mid-game to injury. And you know what? I'm glad that I won. I'm glad that his moping, his negativity proved to be accurate and prophetic. I'm glad. And he's 0-4 now, and he's in big trouble. But regardless, we'll get into him in a second. For now, my team. I was really happy to put up about 120 points on a week where my receivers weren't that great. What, I get about 30 combined out of Diggs, Brown, and Metcalf? It's probably going to be one of their worst weeks altogether of the season. And it was made up by 2 things. One, Jake Moody, kicker position. It's a dart throw. It's a joke. And it worked out in my favor this week. I said last week I'd get 15 from my kicker. I got 14. There you go. Good stuff. Jake Moody, you're sticking around for the long haul. Hunter Henry, maybe the ad of the week, maybe the start of the week. I haven't done that stuff yet. It's definitely a consideration. 6 for 52 and a touchdown. He's the tight end 2 right now. Started him over Pat Freiermuth that gained me 16 points. It was huge. Now, I also had a bad sit of Raheem Mostert, who went off. I really am blown away by what he did against New England. 25.7 points on my bench. If I had started both him and Henry, if I made the correct start call in each of those instances, I would be 4-0 right now. It is what it is. You can't win everything. You can't be right all the time. And I was unfortunately horribly wrong by sitting Mostert, and I did hate myself for a few hours. I got over it. Justin Herbert, very good. Quarterback, too. You like to see that. I'm happy I have him. The Chargers are a joke, but he's good. And then, yeah, I had those two guys go out mid-game. Montgomery, Metcalf, unfortunate. Montgomery's probably going to miss this week. Not good. But what can you do? It's part of existence. A.J. Brown, shit game. 6.9. Now, he did have a touchdown get called back on hold. That would have changed everything. Then you'd be looking at it saying, well, he had 16 points. It was good. No, he didn't. DK Metcalf got tackled and injured on a hit at the 1-yard line. You know, this is the stuff that happens in fantasy football every week. Like, the margins are so thin, and this happens to everybody. Yeah, I just notice it for my guys because I'm following my team. But this happens to everybody every week. You got guys getting tackled at the 2-yard line. You got plays coming back on penalties. You've got like a wide open receiver in the end zone who a quarterback misses. This kind of stuff happens every week, and it determines matchups. And it's frustrating as hell. But I was happy to come away with a victory in spite of my big mistake sitting Mostert. Other side of the matchup, Andrew, it was a decent week. What really screwed him was the Denver defense, negative 0.96. You can't have that. That is bad, in a word, right? I think that's a fair word there. I think it's a bad thing. Alexander Madison, that's his name. He was terrible. He sucked. I don't think he's good. I don't think he is good at what he does, but the one thing that he has going for him moving forward is hopefully volume. Just talked about that with Kyren Williams. There's really nobody else there in Minnesota, and so Madison will have some good games based on volume alone. He was terrible this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a little disappointing, 14.2. Missed some time with cramps. And now I believe I saw that he may have a turf toe injury as well. Maybe I invented that in my mind, but I think I read that somewhere. Something to monitor. Joe Burrow. This is, quarterback 31. You don't like that. That's bad. That's upsetting. And here's the deal with Joe Burrow. He's not healthy. The calf strain has lingered. We know this now. He may sit in week 3. And Andrew took him 3rd round, and that's looking like a horrible, horrible mistake. I hated it draft night, and it looks so much worse now. And it's actually kind of sinking this team. Quarterback 31? God. He's got to be better, or Andrew's season is going to be over in very short order. He was able to put up 17.6 fantasy points this week, a good amount of it coming in the 4th quarter when the Ravens just kind of backed up, played soft coverage, and let him, they were content to let them go down and score in 5 minutes, and that's what they did. And the game was basically over at that point. He's got to be better. Bijan Robinson, he's looked great through 2 weeks. Awesome. And, the funny thing about Bijan is he's averaging 20.8 fantasy points per game, and he's only got 1 touchdown. He can be so much better than this. And he's also given up a ton of touches to Tyler Algier. He's awesome. Just an amazing talent. And if his role expands even a little, it's going to be special. Yeah, Andrew started Algier. I actually hated that decision. Amari Cooper, it is what it is. all the reports going into Sunday were that he was going to sit. He ends up playing Monday night. What can you do? But Andrew sitting Marquise Brown, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. To start two running backs in the same backfield, that's really hard to do and have that work out. That limits your ceiling so much. I would have started Brown. It ends up being a really bad sit that cost him 2 wins. If he had started Brown over Algier, he'd be 2-2 right now. He did make a great start decision with Nico Collins, who's the wide receiver 6 on the season, 20 targets through 2 weeks, 27.6 fantasy points in week 2. Nico Collins, that could be a big steal. Andrew got him 126th overall. Probably the biggest positive takeaway from the week for him, that he may have a very good flex in Collins. But yeah, Andrew's got to win. He's got to win his next matchup. There's nothing else to say. He's got to beat Sam or his season might be over. Anyway, we're going to move on now. And we are going to bring in our guest. We are going to bring in Matt Nordiff, who is coming off of a victory against Colin, 118.91 to 97.87. And Nordiff is 4-0 on the season now. Matt, are you here?
Hello, you hear me?
Yes, Matt is here.
How are we doing today, Kamish?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You're feeling good about your team so far?
Yeah, I feel good about, what was it, 10 players in the starting lineup? I feel good about my starting lineup. Once bye weeks hit, might get a little scary, but I'm feeling good about my squad.
Yeah, and that's something, with my team too. Depth is a real concern for me. I'll also mention depth is a real concern for Dylan. So some of the teams that have some of the better records right now, injuries bye weeks could really ruin their seasons in a hurry. But I agree, in regards to your team, that that's definitely a concern. But you got to be happy with Lamar Jackson, right? 25.25, big response from him.
Yeah, I was getting a little worried after I watched that week 1 game. He looked kind of sloppy, looked
Mhm.
like not the Lamar we know. So I was starting to think that you guys, with your lovely takes on my 3rd-round pick,
Yeah.
I was starting to regret it. But Lamar looked good. He looked kind of like a confident Lamar. So I'm hoping I'm hoping it works out.
One of the picks of yours that I loved, 50th overall, Keenan Allen. And he's been fantastic. He's the wide receiver 5 right now. 19 targets through 2 weeks. He just had a monster game, 31.1 from him against Tennessee. We know with Keenan Allen that there's always the concern of injury. And that's probably why he slipped a little bit in the draft. But for as long as you have him, he's going to be a steal. I think that combination of Hill and Allen is about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling blessed at the wide receiver, at least the starters. I think we're all aware, it's probably going to be Lamar, Hill, and Keenan that kind of dictate how my week's going to go. They likely will be the 3 to carry me. But yeah, it seems like the targets are there. It seems like they're letting Lamar get a little more Lamar like. So I'm hoping for that consistency.
Yeah, and Travis Etienne, rough week 2. He was good in week 1. He got cramped up just like Amon-Ra St. Brown for Andrew. But yeah, I don't know what to think of Etienne. I wasn't all that high on him coming into the year. The thing that concerns me with him is like a lack of pass catching some weeks, and this week in particular, 2 catches for 2 yards. That was coming out of Clemson. That was like his big skill set. I don't really know why it hasn't been used in the NFL all that much, but I think it's going to be very hard for him to take that. I think he's going to be a good running back too, but I just can't see him being a running back 1.
So far, I definitely agree with you. I mean, week 1, you take away that 30 yard run touchdown.
Yeah, exactly.
kind of like a mediocre week.
Uh,
I think during the draft, I said I was in need of a RB2 after taking James Cook, and I think after seeing how involved Cook is, I think now I'm just worried about that RB1 spot. I don't ETN's now my worry. I'm not liking the lack of production or use from him.
sure, yeah. And with James Cook, it's kind of weird because he's a very good player. It's obvious. I'm still worried about his role because they've got old man Latavius Murray in there stealing touchdowns from him. Damian Harris vultured one as well in garbage time. Um, Josh Allen is, of course, always a threat down at the goal line. Like Cook is going to be, he's going to have so many weeks where you're going to look at it. It's going to be like 15 carries for 90 yards, maybe 3 catches for 20 more yards. And like that's a quality week. It'll be 13, 14 points. But you could also then look at it and say, God, it could have been so much better. I feel like that's what the story of Cook is going to be all season. Maybe I'll be wrong. I just feel like his role is never going to be good enough for him to truly explode.
Um, yeah, I agree. I think I think old man Latavius is going to be a real pain in the ass for me. It's giving me kind of PTSD with some Taysom Hill Camara
Yeah.
experiences I've had in the past.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, James Cook, he looked good. I mean, what he was probably like 5 yards, a little over per carry. He looks like he's really making the most out of his touches.
Mm-hmm.
And having him my RB2 spot, I feel good about it.
Yeah.
Um, with my running backs, on my bench, unfortunately, the league has been experiencing a lot of injuries per their running backs.
Horrible.
So, not that I was preying on it, but I might unfortunately benefit from it because I do have, as you said, on brand
Mm-hmm.
drafting unsigned Kareem Hunt. And I also have Leonard Fournette. So I'm hoping that they can land some some team that needs them, and maybe I can not be so scared about my lineup if a player takes a couple weeks off.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if Hunt and Fournette are still unsigned after this, then they're just not going to get signed because there are plenty of teams out there. Cleveland, not even necessarily all the teams with injuries, but also teams with guys underperforming. Cleveland, Minnesota, the Rams could use help in that backfield. The Chargers, if Eckler's injury is actually going to be a multi-week thing, the Giants, so many teams could use a body. You feel like Hunt, like God, he's got to get signed at some point here, unless teams just think he's done. Which
Yeah, I keep the fantasy app hasn't really been putting any updates on it, but I do look it up, here and there. It
mhm.
says he's getting the offers, but he's looking for the right deal. I'm hoping he just caves if this is the case and he just signs with a team. Leonard Fournette, kind of. I'm hearing, the Colts, but Zach Moss looked really good. I think he will be a huge factor for Crunk if they just keep him as the guy.
It's easy to
Um,
look good against the Texans.
good point.
But the good news with Moss when it comes to fantasy, and I talked about this with Kyron Williams earlier, it doesn't. You could be bad. Like you could be a bad running back if you're out. Zach Moss was the only Colts running back who stepped on the field Sunday. He played 98% of snaps. Deion Jackson and Jake Funk did not play. If that's happening, I don't care if you're the worst running back in the NFL. You're going to be fantasy relevant. And so that may be the case with Moss. If he's the only guy they're going to use, he's going to be a running back too.
Yeah, definitely. I think Anthony Richardson going down probably helped him out a little more because, I mean, the rookie got two rushing touchdowns
Yeah,
early in the game. He might be an issue if he comes back. Hopefully he does, but he might vulture some runs.
he will.
But yeah, I think it'll be good for Crunk. He's doing his typical panic, early season panic.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's had some guys underperform, but the team is staying afloat. Do you have any, before I let you go, do you have any takes on anything else in the league, any other teams, anything you're surprised by? Just anything that has struck you through 2 weeks.
Uh, I think Matt Mecca, that's gonna be a dangerous man.
Yeah.
Every time you play him, he's gonna be dangerous. Dylan, surprised. Not. I feel like at the beginning of every season, this is how it goes for Dylan. But something unfortunate usually happens, and then you know he'll be watching the playoffs, on his couch. If you get what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it is what it is. Dylan, he's kind of a scumbag. He's talking, making jokes on the recently deceased, uncalled for. But I'll admit, you can't match, that guest appearance by Dylan. Good for him.
Yeah, really
But
rode the hell out of Big Andy.
yeah, yeah, definitely the right guy to have during a rivalry week
Yeah,
podcast. All right, thank you for your time, guys.
very happy to have you on, and good luck to your team as the season goes on.
Yeah, you too.
All right, take care.
Take care.
So that was Matt Nordiff, who's really had 2 solid weeks. Tyreek Hill, the big performance in week 1, Keenan Allen this week. You know what was most impressive about what Matt did here in week 2? He only got 2.5 points combined out of his kicker and defense. Still puts up nearly 120. That's not easy to do, and I love to see it because I hate those spots. I hate the luck tied to those spots. So that means that the actual skill part of your lineup was very productive. Klingman, on the other hand, not very good. And Collins in trouble. Just like Larari's 0-4, under 100 points here. Just so many concerning things here. Like Damian Pierce on the bench. He's not being used. He's played under 50% of snaps through 2 weeks. 45% of snaps for Pierce. What are they doing? Why are they using Devin Singletary, Mike Boone, Dare Ogunbowale? Why? What are you doing? I okay. I am not going to go on this rant right now, but I just don't get it. To a big step back. That was rough. Under 15 fantasy points, tough matchup at New England. Jahmyr Gibbs, this is extremely disappointing. 10.3 fantasy points per game, only 14 carries through 2 weeks. The hope now is with Montgomery banged up, maybe he sees a little bit more action. But I don't know that that's going to be the case. I don't know. Because when Montgomery got injured, they brought in fucking Craig Reynolds. Okay. So it seems like they just kind of want like a battering ram early down guy. And then Gibbs is more that change of pace, third down pass catching option. Is that going to change? I don't know. Week 3 is going to be a big telltale for Gibbs if Montgomery is in fact out. AJ Dillon did not take advantage of the injury to Aaron Jones, and that's tough to see. He's been terrible. 28 carries, 74 yards through 2 weeks, only 3 catches. AJ Dillon, he started out poorly last year. He was big towards the end. Could he do it again? I don't know, but I'm starting to think he's maybe just not very good, which I originally thought he was great. So I've been a little surprised by that over the last year and a half. CeeDee Lamb was awesome. That's the big, I don't know what I want to say right now, but that's the big positive, I guess, now that my brain was able to function and come up with that very simple word. 25.3 for him. Good times. Love to see it. Garrett Wilson, he caught that bomb touchdown. Didn't really do anything else. But through 2 weeks now, he's had a touchdown kind of salvage his day. I am still down on Wilson and this Jets offense as a whole. Everybody knows that. I've made that clear. But Wilson is so talented that he might be able to overcome it and still be a wide receiver too. I think the chance of him being a wide receiver 1, a breakout candidate, I already said that last week. I think that's dead. but he could be a very good 2 just because of his talent. We'll see. But I think he's going to have terrible games. I think there will be games where he catches 2 passes for 20 to 25 yards. What else do we have? What else? Not much. Josh Kelly was really bad in relief of Eckler. So Colin had those 2 running backs filling in for their starter. Kelly, Dillon, both sucked. Bench was good for Colin. Drake London had a good game. That's nice to see. I still don't trust him in that passing game. Mike Williams, very good game. Christian Kirk, the bench was great. Daniel Jones. And then here's the wild one. I actually couldn't believe this when I saw it. Colin drafted Jerome Ford. He drafted him 180th overall. And then he didn't cut him after week 1 when he only scored 1.6. Colin kept fucking Jerome Ford on his roster. And now the guy who would have been the waiver pickup of the week is already on Colin's team. Colin has had 3 handcuffs already have a chance to play between Dillon, Kelly, and Ford. Unreal. This is unbelievable. I can't believe this. I can't believe he has him. And whoever was first in waiver priority, I think Larar. No, it actually is Colin. So he was going to get him anyway, I guess. Colin or Lohan. It doesn't matter. He's already on Colin's team. So good week for Nordiff. Happy to have him on the show here. And for Colin, yeah, you really need to get things going this week. Final matchup, and I'm going to go fast here. Krieger, 116.35. Horvath, 113.4. I'm not a sicko. 116.35 to 113.4. Actually, I am a sicko. I'm just not going to be one right now. Yeah, Krieger won. Big comeback with the 24.8 points from the Pittsburgh defense special teams. That J.J. Watt, not J.J., oh my God. Slow down. T.J. Watt fumble recovery touchdown at the end. Vaulted Krieger to the victory. Yeah, T.J. Watt, God, that guy, what a career. What a career he's had. Always making big plays. I don't know who forced the fumble. I don't remember. Sorry. You deserve a ton of credit too, whoever you were. 2 touchdowns from that Pittsburgh defense against the bum Browns. Rest of the team bad. Dotson, Higbee, Pacheco, bad times. Not the best. But Chris Olave, 14.6, could have been more. He barely stepped out of bounds on what would have been a long touchdown. Him and McCaffrey have been great through 2 weeks. McCaffrey, 22.5 points. Guy is a stud. Josh Jacobs, what a horrible, horrible, horrible start to the year. This is what happens when you sit out training camp. 28 carries for 46 yards through 2 weeks. Yeah. 9 carries for -2 against Buffalo this week. Fortunately, the pass catching has still been there, and so he's running back 29 on the season despite basically doing nothing. The bench, was pretty good. Zach Moss, Nordiff already mentioned that, 20.7. And I regret not picking him up. I picked him up in a couple other leagues. Wish I had him here. I screwed up there. Moss, yeah, he's going to be the only guy in Indianapolis unless they sign someone, unless Jonathan Taylor comes back. Until then, it's the Zach Moss show because the other guys on roster are bona fide scrubs, as Stephen Smith would say. Stephen A. Smith, who I have no respect for, but I just quoted him. Yeah, Krieger, happy to be 2-2, I'm sure, because he could easily be 0-4. Razor thin margins, that's going to be the story of the second matchup. It's going to be razor thin sharp all season long. And, a couple of plays here and there are going to determine things. Losing side, Horvath. Horvath did want me to note something. He sat DeAndre Swift, and actually, I'm going to pat myself on the back here because I said this about Swift in the draft recap. I said he's going to be basically infuriating to own because of the Eagles committee. And I think I said something like 1 week he'll score 2, 1 week he'll score 25. He started the year with 1.3 and now 27.1. This is going to be the Swift Gainwell experience. Boston Scott, Rashad Penny. It's going to be an annoying committee. But Swift was great on Horvath's bench. He got some chirping from Lohan. Lohan was at the Eagles game and either texted or called Horvath, chirping him about sitting DeAndre. And Horvath just wants Lohan to know that he thinks it's very sad how, he's living so rent free in your head, and you calling him out on a week where you weren't even facing him in fantasy just shows that. And so Horvath just wanted that to be put out there, that he didn't appreciate, nor does he respect what was said to him the other night. I think Horvath needs to relax a little bit, quite honestly, but that's just my opinion. Horvath did unfortunately have his season basically end last night. Nick Chubb suffering that catastrophic injury. Going to be tough to come back from. Chubb out for the year, Kupp out for a few more weeks, and God knows beyond that how he'll be when he returns. Just a shame. DeAndre Hopkins is already a little iffy. Trevor Lawrence has been bad. Quarterback 23 through 2 weeks. Horvath is going to really need him to step up. He's going to need Ramondre to really pick up the load in Chubb's absence. He's going to need him to be great. He's been like solid so far, but unspectacular. Basically 15 points each week. Deebo Samuel, big game, had a rushing score. So, like I said, some weeks it's going to be him, some weeks it's going to be Ayuk. Biggest positive for Horvath, Jordan Addison, 16.1 and 16.2 in his first 2 games, respectively. And that's with him not even playing a full complement of snaps thus far. He's only going to get better. Tutu Atwell has also been a great pickup, 15.2 points on the bench. Again, he's helping out with Kupp injured. Him and Nacua have been very good, along with Kyren Williams. So for Horvath, the Chubb injury, what a shame. If he doesn't go down, Horvath is 4-0 right now, almost certainly. Instead, he's 2-2 and in a pretty dire spot as far as long-term outlook. But, what can you do? It's part of this experience. And I just want to say, people who I spoke to preseason know this. I really wanted, I really strongly considered taking Chubb 9th overall at a point. I love the guy. He's long been, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL, best pure rusher, and I hate what happened to him, and wish him the best. But, that's going to do it for this. I wanted to do 45 minutes. Let's be honest, that was never going to happen. I can't help myself. But we're going to be done for week 2. Come back next week with week 3. We're going to figure some more things out. Some team seasons might basically be over if they go 0-2 again. I'm looking at you, Andrew, Larar, and Colin. I needed to jog my memory. But, exciting times, and good luck to everybody. Hopefully the injuries, turn down those injury sliders. Hopefully not so bad in week 3. But have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you on Tuesday with a new guest.